An all-new Mac is finally here with some big upgrades that might just change everything. Apple just wrapped up their June event. WWDC 2022 is now in the books, and obviously, there's a lot here that we need to talk about. So let's break down all the major announcements, all the big new features and big changes coming to all Apple products, especially the new iPhones this fall, and tell you everything you need to know about this major Apple event, and also tell you how you can get some of this brand new Apple stuff to you, like right now. Seriously, you can get this new stuff right now. Let me explain. Now, I won't bore you with all the little nitty-gritty details here, but as you can imagine, as all Apple events tend to be, it was really exciting. There was lots of fancy camera work, some really cool transitions, and of course, some big announcements and some really big new products here that we have just got to talk about, so let's stop with the intro and just jump into the news. Let's start with what might be considered really the star of the show, one of the biggest, most highly anticipated updates we've been waiting kind of years for at this point, and that of course is this, the brand new, redesigned, colorful, all-new MacBook Air. Now, the MacBook Air has sort of been iconic in the tech space since it so elegantly debuted out of that manila envelope back in 2008, and ever since then, it has gone through some transformations. It has become a little bit different than it originally was, but really, if you look at what we saw in 2008 with what we had up until now, things haven't changed all that much. Of course, the tech changed over the years, but this is by far for 2022, the biggest update the MacBook Air has gotten basically since it launched. What is that now, 14 years ago? Crazy how time just flies. And of course, the first thing we've got to talk about with this all new MacBook Air is this redesign. Apple is really doubling down on this industrial design language. We saw it with the iMac, we're seeing it on the Studio display, even the Mac Studio, the iPhone, iPad Pro. Apple is really embracing these boxier edges, squared off corners. No longer are they sort of going for that tapered minimalism design, which I actually think is a good move here, and I think this new MacBook Air looks just fantastic. I know this design is certainly not for everyone, especially the inside of this laptop, which I'll get into in a second, but sort of initially your thoughts on this, I'd be curious. What are your thoughts on sort of this redesigned exterior of the MacBook Air? Are you a fan? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Let me know your thoughts down below. And of course, the other big change here with the design on the outside is of course colors. It's coming in 4 colors: silver, space gray, starlight, and midnight, and it's not going to feature that huge color array that we thought that was similar to the iMac and the iPad Air. You are going to get a splash of color here on the MacBook Air, but it's not going to be the very wide selection like you get on those other consumer-focused Apple products. Next up, let's jump into the inside here, and surprisingly, the new MacBook Air does not have the white keyboard and white bezel around the display that was rumored to be coming, sort of like what we have on the current generation of iMac. Some people love that look, some people hate it. I thought it looked good on the new MacBook Air, at least according to the renders, but for better or for worse, it is not here with this new model. The other controversial change here that you'll see with this new MacBook Air that some will love and some will hate is of course the notch. It's basically the same notch as what we've got on the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro models. That does give you a higher end 1080p webcam, which is nice to see, but it does give you that notch on top of the display. So for better or worse, it's there and you're getting a better webcam, but you are sacrificing a bit on the little cutout at the very top of that screen. In terms of ports, we're also getting a little bit of DNA from the MacBook Pro here on the side with MagSafe making its return, which is really nice to see. Also, just a simple mix of USB-C ports and a headphone jack. Now, of course, as exciting as this all is on the outside, new colors, a really nice design, some major refreshes here for this thin and lightweight laptop. That's not the whole story, because what may be as equally important, if not more important, is the all-new Apple Silicon that is rocking and powering this thing on the inside. This new MacBook Air introduces Apple's all-new M2 processor. This is the successor to the M1. The real story with the M2 is that Apple is continuing to focus on power efficiency and performance. So they say you're going to get about 18% better CPU performance on the M2 versus the M1, and up to 35% better GPU performance on this new chip versus the previous generation of Apple Silicon. The M2 also supports more memory with up to 24 gigs of unified memory on this new chip. And really, I think what we've learned from Apple Silicon since the debut of the M1 is that you can't go wrong really with any model. Even Apple's quote-unquote base tier, their base M1, proved to be a really good contender against high-end Intel chips. And whether you just wanted to do, photo and video editing, basic stuff, or move to higher-end stuff, or you wanted to just browse the web, the chip could handle it all. Obviously, if you are intending to do more sort of higher end pro tasks, you might want to look at a MacBook Pro. But if you're looking to sort of dabble in some video and photo editing and also just sort of do general computer stuff, this new chip inside is going to be perfect and is going to give you really great battery life and really great performance that should make it speedy, fast, just a really great computer that you're just gonna love. This all new MacBook Air starts at $1199 and will be available sometime next month. Now, surprising to see here or not, Apple also reintroduced the base MacBook Pro with the all-new M2 chip inside. Now, it's gonna have a more powerful and more efficient chip inside powering this thing, but the design is exactly the same. Even the touch bar is still here on this base entry-level 13-inch MacBook Pro, and the design just looks very dated, especially compared to the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, and even the MacBook Air. So, sort of interesting to see Apple still keeping this around, and also keeping it around at a $1299 price point to start with, which there is going to be a little bit of a discount there for education markets, but not that much. The MacBook Air seems like a much better buy if you're considering picking up this entry-level base MacBook Pro. Now, of course, as always happens at WWDC in June, we get our first look at Apple's new software updates coming to all of their products in the fall. This is where we see the upgrades coming to the Mac, to the iPad, to the Apple Watch, and of course, probably what we're all most excited about is iOS 16 on the iPhone. This is when we get a preview of what software will be launching with the iPhone 14s this fall, which I'll make a little video on that later because there's some interesting tidbits there we gotta talk about. But of course, let's talk about all the biggest features, changes, and upgrades coming with iOS 16 this fall to your iPhone. Now, iOS 16 didn't feature any major redesign to the apps or the icons or anything like that, but one area that's really nice to see get some much needed love is the lock screen with an all new sort of reimagined, much more interactive lock screen here that's going to debut on iOS 16. Funny enough, this sort of seems like a feature blown up from watchOS to match sort of the screen of your iPhone here with iOS 16. You basically have different looks you can choose from. You can customize the fonts and the colors. You've got sort of new ways you can display images and the time. You sort of also have ways to sort of interact with widgets sort of here on the lock screen. You can place different widgets. There are also more live updating widgets that developers can develop, and those should come sometime later this year. Basically a much more redefined, refreshed lock screen that's getting its first change basically ever. I know it's gotten changes over the years, but this is the biggest changed lock screen has ever seen, and it looks really nice, really modern, and looking really good on this all-new version of iOS. There are some other new features across different Apple apps which got some long requested features, like messages now. You can edit messages, you can undo send, and also mark a thread as unread, which is nice, and something I find myself wishing I could do all the time that I now can do on iOS 16. You've also got updates coming to Apple Pay, Maps, family sharing, photos. Now you can do an iCloud shared photo library, which is kind of cool if you want to more easily share photos with family and friends. And also one of the coolest things here that's a part of iOS 16 is this all new sort of sneak peek at the next generation of CarPlay. Now, Apple was a little vague on this, on exactly when it's going to come and what cars will come, and we'll see if this ever does become reality, but this sort of concept looks really, really cool. It sort of spreads the entire sort of iOS look and feel across your car's display, or multiple displays if your car supports it, and sort of gives us a hint at maybe an Apple car is sort of coming soon. Probably not, but this is a really cool look, and it will be really nice to see when the next generation of CarPlay eventually rolls out on some of these new cars over the coming years. Now, if all those new features sound really cool and you're just dying to get this on your current iPhone, is there a way to do it? Can you try iOS 16 on your phone right now? Yes, you can do it, and yes, there's a way to do it, but let me caution you by saying this. A couple of cautions here. First off, these beta versions, especially beta 1, are notoriously buggy. Some apps just refuse to work. Some apps behave really badly. It's usually a drain on your battery. Your phone can get warm. It's not for the faint of heart. So just expect your phone not to be reliable. And if you really rely on your phone for making phone calls, sending texts, doing general phone things, then I would recommend not putting this beta on your phone. But if you want to ignore that advice and you want to try these new features, you can do it now, and here's how to get iOS 16 on your phone right now. The official way to do this is to sign up and register for an Apple developer account. This, I believe, is $99 a year and gives you access to a bunch of developer tools, resources, and of course, the latest developer beta versions of new software, including here the first beta of iOS 16 that you can play around with now, and it'll launch to the public later on this fall. And if you do want to play around with this and get this on your phone, all you've got to do is go to the Apple developer portal, pay the money, and you basically get like instant access. The betas sometimes take a while to populate on the portal, but once they're there, you can download it, go go through the process, add it to your phone, and you will be good to go. Though again, just be warned, there are some issues there you will face, especially with the very first beta. Now, there are also alternate versions to get it, which I will warn you, you shouldn't rely on, as I did a few years ago. I went through some alternate sources to get the beta, and I almost basically bricked my phone for a few weeks. Well, it was bricked, but I was able to recover it, but it was a mess. It was a nightmare. Do not do it. So I would recommend strongly that you do not follow advice of people on Twitter or Reddit or other things. If you want to do it officially, pay the money, get on Apple's developer portal and do it that way, because you run the risk of really messing things up if you don't go that route. Now, the other way to do this, and the much safer and free route, is to wait for Apple to release their public beta. This is something they do usually a few weeks after developers get their betas. Usually after the first few betas, they will release a public beta, and this is a free way to get iOS 16 on your phone basically instantaneously. Now, the one question you might have after we just went through all the major details here is, what happened to the headset? Where is Reality OS? Where is Apple's mixed reality AR VR headset? What is the status of that? And we heard a flurry of last minute rumors that it was going to happen, it wasn't going to happen, it was a will they or won't they of if they would show it off, but ultimately Apple didn't make any direct references or show off the headset to us at all. It seems like as of right now, this is something that might be pushed to a separate event, maybe something in the fall, or more likely an event of its own or some sort of a part of an event in the new year of 2023. So it was originally, of course, as always, supposed to make an appearance at WWDC. It didn't make its appearance, which is sad, but it should be coming in the next few months. So as always, guys, I am curious, what are your thoughts on this year's WWDC? Was it an exciting event? Was it not so exciting? Was it disappointing? Was it surprising? Are you, bummed out about iOS 16 and the features? Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff down below. Are you putting the betas on your devices? Are you excited about all the announcements Apple made? And do you think that we'll see some more surprises in the fall? Or do you think that it's going to be sort of status quo for the rest of the year? Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff down below. Let me know what was most exciting to you that happened today at WWDC. And let me know your thoughts. We can all discuss and geek out below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching the Apple Circle. I really appreciate it. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I'll see you all in the next one.